Okay, let's try something. Reminder, I'm using the RAK2270 sticker tracker. I have this course called Maker 100, but I've made this new course, an economical one, with much less expensive microcontrollers. So the original part is a good course, and then I get to this advanced stuff with the RAK2270 sticker tracker. Now, every once in a while, because this board does not have a mechanical way to put it into boot mode, every once in a while your code kind of messes up and the at commands don't work. So we have this RAKDAP to help communicate with the sticker tracker, and we should be able to use it with the stm32cubeProgrammer. Let me just find that site, stm32cubeProgrammer. And there it is. You have to have your own login. Once you've got a login, you can install it. Win64, get the latest. You do need a login, blah, blah, blah. And then you have to come back here, whatever. So you can get it installed. The issue is at the moment that the RAKDAP, I know it works, but I had a hard time getting it set up. I do have one of these very cool st-link-v2s. Unfortunately, there are two things that have the exact same name. This is the one I have. And notice it has, well, it has 3v3 ground, SWD-IO, and SWC-LK. It has a clock and a data input output. Okay, so our board, our RAK2270, also has SWD-IO, SWC-LK, ground, and VCC can be 3.3 volts, which the STM, where did my picture of it go? Has 3.3 volts. It's just on the other side. Okay, so what I'd like to do is hook this up. I've got the rack clip. I've got this. I've just got to get all that information done to the right spot. So it's going to go 3.3 volts, IO, clock, ground. So I've got those all in a nice row. Can you see it? Yeah, they're on the inside row. And it's going red, brown, orange, and you can barely see the black. Okay. Then on my st-link-v2, I've got red, black. This is interesting. I've got the orange for the data I/O. No, that's got to go brown. That's how you fry boards, just getting stuff the wrong way around. And unfortunately, I work really quickly normally, and I make lots of mistakes. So if you make a ton of mistakes, just think that so do I. So the huge problem with these things is not only clicking them in exactly perfectly, making sure it's at right angles, making sure the pins are in the right spot. Here, I'll try to... See, I just twisted it a little bit. That screwed it up. Okay. I'm just going to kind of hope that's in the right spot. And hope that that plugs in. As it plugs in, sometimes it auto-reads. So, I'm still going to work on that, but one thing I do want to show you is this RAK2270 sticker tracker. This is from RAKWireless. If we actually go to the site, RAKWireless, ooh, that's a little bit farther than I wanted to go. If we go to repositories, go RAK2270, there it is, the sticker tracker. So this is their site with the firmware and the hardware. We go into firmware. If I go into the release, so here we go. Our release 6 is the latest release. There's the hex file, and that is what we want to download. I've got my download right there, so there it is. I'm just going to pause for a second while I figure out what's wrong. It's these things. I just gotta get my act together. Okay, so first lesson here is if I move this and it gets screwed up, I lose this connection right here. But just moving this thing doesn't fix the connection. I have to move this thing, get it proper, then plug in the ST-Link again. Okay, so that's a huge deal. Now, if I was using the RAK DAC, there are a couple little pins right here. One's called, let's look at the actual image. One's called VCC and the other's called boot 0. Typically, I would have to connect those two together. But I'm wondering if the ST-Link is smart enough to figure it out without putting it into stm32cubeProgrammer. So I'm just going to see what goes on here. I'm going to try to connect. There we go. There's the starting, and that is the boot load. Starting at address, whatever you call this, 8 million. So what I want to do is I've downloaded that file there. Fairly sure I can't drag drop, but one of my skills are breaking things. Looks like you can drag drop. So you'll notice when I look at this file, it says this 8, that, and then if I look at the device memory, it's got the same bootloader. Well, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to download that new hex file onto this board. Let's just see it. So it's erasing the internal memory sectors 0 to 107, and it downloaded it. But I have now replaced the boot file, but I haven't necessarily replaced the program. And I'm sure there's a way to erase the whole program here, but I've never used this code before. stm32cubeProgrammer I have used before, but I'm not massively familiar with it. So one thing you could do is in Arduino, you could write some code and export it to as a hex file. Do I have my Arduino code? I don't at the moment, but we could upload that code here as well. Let's see if I can get into documents, Arduino. Where's RAK? LMNOPQR, RAK2270. Let's try the temperature code. There I've got some hex, so I'm going to drag it on here. Never knew that actually worked. And notice it's not at 8 million, it's at 8,006,000. So I'm going to try to download that code. But the problem with this is I'm not sure if the two, the bootloader and that code, are going to communicate. It says it downloaded, and I have to hook it up the normal way. See, I don't really have an output way, but let me pause and I'll see. Anyway, the deal was presently I can't get the RAK DAP 1 working, but you can get an st-link-v2 working quite smoothly. And it seems to work without the special connecting these two boot things. Not totally tested that. So I'm just going to pause and see if I can set this code up. This code had the RAK DAC, the RAK hack code on it. So I'm trying to load the temperature code. Let me pause. Okay, so I rehooked up the rack DAC. Sorry, it's off screen, but I don't want to move it at the moment. With the normal connections, which is RX-TX, 3v3, and ground. Um, and here's the rack DAC, rack hack code I had on that was switching from LoRa to LoRa P2P. Remember, we loaded up the stm32cubeProgrammer code, the Win64 one, and uploaded not only the boot version, but also some code, which I don't even have loaded here. By the way, export compiled binary. Arduino does allow uploading using the programmer, but it didn't work for me. But I could export the binary, so you can export the hex file and then upload it. And here we're on port 7 and serial monitor. And remember, rack DAC was on this, so it was switching from LoRa to LoRaWAN, and now it's the voltage on the rack and the temperature. So yeah, that was the code you saw. We use the STEM32 program, and today I didn't even do the step where you connect these two. It's actually really confusing to do. If you look at these are slightly farther apart than these two. So how the heck do you do it? Do you solder something on and then desolder it to work with it? So the STEM32 STM32cubeProgrammer with the st-link with this thing is really quite efficient for working with things. I know we'll get the rack DAP one working, and I'd really like to get it working with drag and drop, which is super easy, but haven't got that working yet. Anyway, that's today's little video.